Speaker, it's my pleasure to be able to speak as well. Right off the bat, I will be supporting this NDP motion as well. Thank you for the tepid response.
We'll get better as you go.
Okay. Speaker, I'm going to do three things today. I'm going to set the stage about the finances of Ontario. Then I'm going to talk about the Financial Accountability Officer. And then I'm going to really talk about where this money is going and the motivation behind the sale. So first of all, as this legislature knows fully well, and as my colleague mentioned, the Deputy Premier told us loudly and clearly on W5 a couple of weeks ago, we're out of money. We can talk about why, Speaker, the bills to pay the secret deal for the Mars bailout, although Mars institution itself, very valuable, the building it's in, bailing out a U.S. realtor, $410 million approximately. Somebody has to pay the piper. The $1.1 billion spent to cancel 2 gas plants, we know that bill is due, and we have to pay the piper. The smart meters, they told us it was $1 billion, it's $2 billion. Orange Air Ambulance, another almost $1 billion there. I mean, in 30 seconds I've mentioned $4 billion of scandals. So we know the why. And what's a result of it? Of course, we all know Moody's has given us 2 credit downgrades. One recent analysis suggests that costs us an extra $430 million a year in interest because of that. Conference Board of Canada told us loudly and clearly as well, this province can't meet its pledge to balance the books. The Auditor General told us in her last report, debt continues to grow faster than the province's economy. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce, in their appropriately titled report on our economy, How Bad Is It? That's the title. They used words such as crisis and dire in their report. That's what's sprinkled through their report. Canadian Federation of Independent Business told us 97% of businesses in Ontario are concerned about our economy. So Speaker, we've set the financial stage here, and now we know what the government has done. They've decided to have a fire sale of assets. So they started a year ago when they had borrowed money to buy the General Motors shares. Last year, they sold the shares for $1.1 billion, and instead of doing the prudent thing and paying the money back to where they borrowed it from, they just plunked that right into operating costs. We know that now. This year, they've decided to have a fire sale of our valuable asset of Hydro One, and that money now, ostensibly, will simply go into the pay the debt and deficit. So the government continues, Speaker, to tell us that this money is going into infrastructure. So I'm going to read you a quote from the Ottawa Citizen, because it really does sum up what this shell game is all about. A reasonable person might wonder why we need to sell most of a significant public asset just to keep doing what we've been doing for years. The real answer, I suspect, is that putting some billions of new money into the province's transit trust will enable the government to quietly shift existing money to help it reduce the deficit or pay for other spending. Speaker, you can't put it better than that. So to prove out that point, back in the 2014 budget, when they announced the $130 billion infrastructure expenditure, it did not need the sale of hydro. But the next year's budget, the 2015 budget, repeated exactly the same lines as the 2014 budget, the same $130 billion. But this year, they now say it needs the hydro sale to make this possible. But, Speaker, their own documents tell us they did not need the hydro sale to make this. So we know that they've overpromised and underdelivered on almost everything they've done, Speaker. In the 4 short years that I've been here, I've seen it, and certainly in my 2 terms as mayor of the city of North Bay, I saw the same thing, overpromise and underdeliver. So, Speaker, the Financial Accountability Officer took it upon himself. In fact, his words were he took on his own initiative to prepare the report, the assessment, the financial assessment of the sale. And this is a quote from the briefing that we held with him. This is the Financial Accountability Officer's quote, "The province's fiscal position deteriorates because of loss of income generated by the sale." So you know that this is going to hurt us in the long term. It's going to hurt our financial picture. So he also told us this is really a financing decision. Do you borrow or do you sell an asset? That's what this is all about. It's not about transit. Do you borrow or do you sell an asset? I would go a little further and suggest, or do you simply start managing your finances properly and stop the scandalous spending? That I would have added, but he's a little more gentle than I am. So again, we've seen the GM shares. That was how they burned the furniture to heat the house last year. This year, they're going to sell hydro, one-time sale. The Financial Accountability Officer told us we could bring in as low as $1.4 billion. Never mind the number that the Finance Minister threw around today, including a $2 billion from non-cash asset. That money has to come from somewhere. We're talking about, I would prefer to listen to the Financial Accountability Officer, far above and beyond anybody on that side of the House. So we could get as low as $1.4 billion net. Speaker, we're going to give up $700 million in revenue a year. And so what he said is basically, this has a long-term negative impact on the province. You're going to juice up the books for 2 years. You're going to look great. But year 3, you've got no money now. A, no money coming in, and B, the $1.4 billion is already gone. So you can do that as long as you've got assets to sell. Again, last year it was the General Motors shares, $1.1 billion. This year it's hydro, $1.4 billion. So we learned only a few minutes ago, Speaker, when the Minister presented his Budget Measures Act. Here's what they're selling next. The OPG headquarters real estate, the LCBO headquarters real estate, and OPG's Lakeview Generating Station property. They're telling us now that this is what they plan on selling in the future to pay their bills. So pretty soon, Speaker, we're going to run out of assets to sell. This is no way. This is absolutely no way. You're not fixing the problem. The problem is the overspending. So you're not addressing the core problem. Remember, Speaker, that this is the same group that's selling this hydro that only a few months ago sold the Ontario, the telecommunications division of Ontario Northland, for $6 million. First of all, Speaker, they spent, as we disclosed, $6.5 million on consultants and lawyers and got $6 million for an asset. It took the Auditor General to tell us, oh, by the way, the asset was worth more than that. You lost $61 million. Talk about giving away the farm, Speaker. They lost $61 million. We're going to let these guys handle this multi-billion-dollar asset when they can't even transact something as small as that. And sadly, Speaker, it was as precious as that, because it's gone too. All the ongoing revenue from that asset, they lost $60,937,000. I mean, can you imagine that, Speaker? They knew they were losing that, and they went into it. So, Speaker, the FAO, the Financial Accountability Officer, also told us the initial 15% sale of hydro would significantly reduce the province's deficit in 15-16. He's told us this has nothing to do with transit. That money was already in the budget. Yes, they may put it into transit, but take the money that was in transit out at the bottom. It's a shell game, Speaker, and the Financial Accountability Officer laid it bare. He told us it will go to reduce the deficit. And he's also told us in the years following the sale of 60% of Hydro One, the province's budget balance would be worse than it would have been without the sale. That's how desperate they are for cash, Speaker. They know that this is a bad deal, and yet they're going to go ahead. We saw them shed 15%. They're going to go ahead and shed the remainder of this asset, Speaker. This is how absolutely mind-bogglingly ridiculous this sale is. They know from families, they know from members of Parliament who have been speaking here, and now they know from the Financial Accountability Officer that the long-term negative impact in this province is about to happen. Speaker, I fully support this motion. I know our party fully supports this motion. We are terribly disturbed at the lack of financial accountability that this government has brought, and I'm looking forward to the remainder of the debate.